26. In the Wed Patch camp, on an evening when the long, barred clouds hung over the set sun and inflamed their edges, the Jode family lingered after their supper. Ma hesitated before she started to do the dishes. "We got to do somepin'," she said. And she pointed at Winfield. "Look at him," she said. And when they stared at the little boy, "He's a jerkin' and a twistin' in his sleep. Look at his color." The members of the family looked at the earth again in shame. "Fried dough," Ma said. "1 month we been here. Tom had 5 days' work. The rest of you scrabblin' out every day, no work. Scared to talk. The money gone. You're scared to talk it out. Every night you'd seat, then you get wanderin' away. Can't bear to talk it out. Well, you got to. Rosa Sharn ain't far from due, look at her color. You got to talk it out. Now don't none of you get up till we figure somepin' out. 1 day more grease and 2 days flour, and 10 potatoes. You set here and get busy." They looked at the ground. Pa cleaned his thick nails with his pocket knife. Uncle John picked at a splinter on the box he sat on. Tom pinched his lower lip and pulled it away from his teeth. He released his lip and said softly, "We been lookin', Ma. Been walkin' out since we can't use the gas no more. Been goin' in ever gate, walkin' up to ever house, even when we knowed they wasn't gonna be nothin'. Puts a weight on ya. Goin' out lookin' for somepin' you know you ain't gonna find." Ma said fiercely, "You ain't got the right to get discouraged. This here fambly's goin' under. You ain't got the right." Pa inspected his scraped nail. "We gotta go," he said. "We didn't want to go. It's nice here, and folks is nice here. We're feared we'll have to go live in one of them Hoovervas. Well, if we got to, we got to. First thing is, we got to eat." Al broke in. "I got a tank full of gas in the truck. I didn't let nobody get into that." Tom smiled. "This here Al got a lot of sense along with he's randy pandy. Now you figure," Ma said. "I ain't watchin' this here fambly starve no more. 1 day more grease. That's what we got. Come time for Rosa Sharn to lay in, she got to be fed up. You figure. This here hot water and toilets," Pa began. "Well, we can't eat no toilets." Tom said, "They was a fella come by today lookin' for men to go to Marysville. Pickin' fruit." "Well, why don't we go to Marysville?" Ma demanded. "I dunno," said Tom. "Didn't seem right, somehow. He was so anxious. Wouldn't say how much the pay was. Said he didn't know exactly." Ma said, "We're goin' to Marysville. I don't care what the pay is. We're goin'." "It's too far," said Tom. "We ain't got the money for gasoline. We couldn't get there." "Ma, you say we got to figure." "I ain't doin' nothin' but figure the whole time." Uncle John said, "Feller says they's cotton comin' in up north, near a place called Tulare. That ain't very far, the feller says. Well, we got to get goin', and goin' quick. I ain't settin' here no longer, no matter how nice." Ma took up her bucket and walked toward the sanitary unit for hot water. "Ma gets tough," Tom said. "I seen her gettin' mad quite a piece now. She boils up." Pa said with relief, "Well, she bring it into the open, anyways. I been layin' at night burnin' my brains up. Now we can talk her out, anyways." Ma came back with her bucket of steaming water. "Well," she demanded, "figure anything out?" "You workin' her over," said Tom. "Now s'pose we move up north where that cotton's at. We been over this here country. We know they ain't nothin' here. S'pose we pack up and shove north. Then when the cotton's ready, we'll be there. I kinda like to get my hands around some cotton. You got a full tank, Al?" "Almost, 'bout 2 inches down. Should get us up to that place." Ma poised a dish over the bucket. "Well?" she demanded. Tom said. "You win. We'll move on, I guess." "Huh, Pa?" "Guess we got to," Pa said. Ma glanced at him. "When?" "Well, no need waitin'. Might's well go in the mornin'. We got to go in the mornin'. I tell you what's left. Now, Ma, Don't think I don't want to go. I ain't had a good gutful to eat in 2 weeks. Course I filled up, but I didn't take no good from it. Ma plunged the dish into the bucket. We'll go in the mornin', she said. Pa sniffed. Seems like times is changed, he said sarcastically. Time was when a man said what we do. Seems like women is tellin' now. Seems like it's pretty near time to get out a stick. Ma put the clean dripping tin dish out on a box. She smiled down at her work. You get your stick, Pa, she said. Times when they's food in a place to set, then maybe you can use your stick and keep your skin whole. But you ain't a doin' your job, either a thinkin' or a workin'. If you was, why, you could use your stick, and women folks sniffle their nose and creep mouse around. But you get you a stick now and you ain't lickin' no woman, you're a fightin', 'cause I got a stick all laid out too. Pa grinned with embarrassment. Now it ain't good to have the little fellas hear you talkin' like that, he said. You get some bacon inside the little fellas 'fore you come tellin' what else is good for 'em, said Ma. Pa got up in disgust and moved away, and Uncle John followed him. Ma's hands were busy in the water, but she watched them go, and she said proudly to Tom, he's all right. He ain't beat. He's like as not to take a smack at me. Tom laughed. You a treadin' him on? Sure, said Ma. Take a man, he can get worried, and it eats out his liver, and pretty soon he'll lay down and die with his heart head out. But if you can take and make him mad, why, he'll be alright. Pa, he didn't say nothin', but he's mad now. He'll show me now. He's alright. Al got up. I'm gonna walk down the row, he said. Better see the truck's ready to go, Tom warned him. She's ready. If she ain't, I'll turn Ma on ya. She's ready. Al strolled jauntily along the row of tents. Tom sighed. I'm gettin' tired, Ma. How about makin' me mad? You got more sense, Tom. I don't need to make you mad. I got to lean on you. Them others, they're kinda strangers, all but you. You won't give up, Tom. The job fell on him. I don't like it, he said. I want to go out like Hal. And I want to get mad like Pa, and I want to get drunk like Uncle John. Ma shook her head. You can't, Tom. I know. I knowed from the time you was a little fella. You can't. They's some folks that's just their self and nothing more. There's Al, he's a young fella after a girl. You wasn't never like that, Tom. Sure I was, said Tom. Still am. No you ain't. Everything you do is more'n you. When they sent you up to prison I knowed it. You're spoke for. Now, Ma, cut it out. It ain't true. It's all in your head. She stacked the knives and forks on top of the plates. Maybe it's in my head. Rosa Sharn, you wipe up these here and put 'em away. The girl got breathlessly to her feet and her swollen middle hung out in front of her. She moved sluggishly to the box and picked up a washed dish. Tom said, gettin' so tightful it's a pullin' her eyes wide. Don't you go a jollyin', said Ma. She's doin' good. You go long and say goodbye to anybody you wan. Okay, he said. I'm gonna see how far it is up there. Ma said to the girl, he ain't sayin' stuff like that to make you feel bad. Where's Ruthie and Winfield? They snuck off after Pa. I seen 'em. Well, leave 'em go. Rose of Sharon moved sluggishly about her work. Ma inspected her cautiously. You feelin' pretty good? Your cheeks is kinda saggy. I ain't had milk like they said I ought. I know. We didn't have no milk. Rose of Sharon said dully, if Connie hadn't went away, we'd had a little house by now, with him studyin' and all. Woulda got milk like I need. Would had a nice baby. This here baby ain't gonna be no good. I ought had milk. She reached in her apron pocket and put something into her mouth. Ma said, I seen you nibblin' on somethin'. What you eatin'? Nothin'. Come on, what you nibblin' on? A piece of slack lime. Found a big hunk. Why, that's like eatin' dirt. I kinda feel like I wan it. Ma was silent. She spread her knees and tightened her skirt. "I know," she said at last. "I ate coal once when I was in a family way. Ate a big piece of coal. Grandma says I should. Don, you say that about the baby. You got no right even to think it. Got no husband. Got no milk. Ma said, if you was a well girl, I'd take a wang at you. Right in the face." She got up and went inside the tent. She came out and stood in front of Rose of Sharon, and she held out her hand. "Look." The small gold earrings were in her hand. "These is for you." The girl's eyes brightened for a moment, and then she looked aside. "I ain't pierced." "Well, I'm gonna pierce ya." Ma hurried back into the tent. She came back with a cardboard box. Hurriedly she threaded a needle, doubled the thread and tied a series of knots in it. She threaded a second needle and knotted the thread. In the box she found a piece of cork. "It'll hurt. It'll hurt." Ma stepped to her, put the cork in back of the earlobe and pushed the needle through the ear, into the cork. The girl twitched. "It sticks. It'll hurt." "No more'n that." "Yes, it will." "Well, then. Let's see the other ear first." She placed the cork and pierced the other ear. "It'll hurt." "Hush," said Ma. "It's all done." Rose of Sharon looked at her in wonder. Ma clipped the needles off and pulled one knot of each thread through the lobes. "Now," she said. "Every day we'll pull one knot, and in a couple weeks it'll be all well and you can wear 'em. Here, they're your'n now. You can keep 'em." Rose of Sharon touched her ears tenderly and looked at the tiny spots of blood on her fingers. "It didn't hurt. Ju stuck a little." "You oughta been pierced long ago," said Ma. She looked at the girl's face, and she smiled in triumph. "Now get them dishes all done up. Your baby gonna be a good baby. Very near let you have a baby without your ears was pierced. But you're safe now. Does it mean somethin'?" "Why, course it does," said Ma. "Course it does." Al strolled down the street toward the dancing platform. Outside a neat little tent he whistled softly, and then moved along the street. He walked to the edge of the grounds and sat down in the grass. The clouds over the west had lost the red edging now, and the cores were black. Al scratched his legs and looked toward the evening sky. In a few moments a blonde girl walked near. She was pretty and sharp-featured. She sat down in the grass beside him and did not speak. Al put his hand on her waist and walked his fingers around. "Don't," she said. "You tickle." "We're goin' away tomorrow," said Al. She looked at him, startled. "Tomorrow? Where?" "Up north," he said lightly. "Well, we're gonna get married, ain't we?" "Sure, sometime." "You said pretty soon." She cried angrily. "Well, soon is when soon comes. You promised." He walked his fingers around farther. "Get away," she cried. "You said we was." "Well, sure we are." Now you're goin' away." Al demanded, "What's the matter with you? You in a family way?" "No, I ain't." Al laughed. "You been wastin' my time, huh?" Her chin shot out. She jumped to her feet. "You get away from me, Al Jode. I don't want to see you no more." "Aw, come on. What's the matter? You think you're Joe, hell on wheels. Now wait a minute. You think I got to go out with you? Well, I don't. I got lots of chances. Now wait a minute. No, sir, you get away." Al lunged suddenly, caught her by the ankle, and tripped her. He grabbed her when she fell and held her and put his hand over her angry mouth. She tried to bite his palm, but he cupped it out over her mouth, and he held her down with his other arm. And in a moment she lay still, and in another moment they were giggling together in the dry grass. "Why, we'll be comin' back pretty soon," said Al. "And I'll have a pocket full of Jack. We'll go down to Hollywood and see the pictures." She was lying on her back. Al bent over her. And he saw the bright evening star reflected in her eyes, and he saw the black cloud reflected in her eyes. "We'll go on the train," he said. "How long ya think it'll be?" she asked. "Oh, maybe a month," he said. The evening dark came down and Pa and Uncle John squatted with the heads of families out by the office. They studied the night and the future. The little manager, in his white clothes, frayed and clean, rested his elbows on the porch rail. His face was drawn and tired. Houston looked up at him. "You better get some sleep, mister." "I guess I ought. Baby born last night in Unit 3. I'm getting to be a good midwife." "Fella ought to know," said Houston. "Married fella got to know." Pa said, "We're a gettin' out in the mornin'." "Yeah? Which way you goin'?" "Thought we'd go up north a while. Try to get in the first cotton. We ain't had work. We're out of food." "Know if they's any work?" Houston asked. "No, but we're sure they ain't none here." "They will be, a little later," Houston said. "We'll hold on. We hate to go," said Pa. "Folks been so nice here, and the toilets and all. But we got to eat. Got a tank of gas. That'll get us a little piece up the road. We had a bath every day here. Never was so clean in my life. Funny thing, used to be I only got a bath every week and I never seemed to stink. But now if I don't get one every day I stink. Wonder if taking a bath so often makes that?" "Maybe you couldn't smell yourself before," the manager said. "Maybe. I wished we could stay." The little manager held his temples between his palms. "I think there's going to be another baby tonight," he said. "We gonna have one in our family for long," said Pa. "I wished we could have it here. I sure wished we could." Tom and Willie and Jewel the half-breed sat on the edge of the dance floor and swung their feet. "I got a sack of drum," Jewel said. "Like a smoke?" "I sure would," said Tom. "Ain't had a smoke for a hell of a time." He rolled the brown cigarette carefully, to keep down the loss of tobacco. "Well, sir, we'll be sorry to see you go," said Willie. "You folks is good folks." Tom lighted his cigarette. "I've been thinking about it a lot. Jesus Christ, I wished we could settle down." Jewel took back his drum. "It ain't nice," he said. "I got a little girl. Thought when I come out here she'd get some schoolin'. But hell, we ain't in one place hardly long enough. Just gets going and we got to drag on." "I hope we don't get in no more Hoovervas," said Tom. "I was really scared, there. Deputies push you around?" "I was scared I'd kill somebody," said Tom. "Was only there a little while, but I was a stewin' around the whole time. Deputy come in and picked up a friend, Jew because he talked out a turn. I was Jew stewin' all the time." "Ever been in a strike?" Willie asked. "No. Well, I been thinkin' a lot. Why don't them deputies get in here and raise hell like ever place else? Think that little guy in the office is stoppin' 'em?" "No, sir." "Well, what is?" Jewel asked. "I'll tell ya. It's 'cause we're workin' together. Deputy can't pick on one fella in this camp, he's pickin' on the whole darn camp. And he don't dare. All we got to do is give a yell and they's 200 men out. Fella organizin' for the union was talkin' out on the road. He says we could do that any place. Jews stick together. They ain't raisin' hell with no 200 men. They're pickin' on one man." "Yeah," said Jewel, "and suppose you got a union? You got to have leaders. They'll you pick up your leaders, and where's your union?" "Well," said Willie, "we got to figure her out sometime. I been out here a year, and wages is going right on down. Fella can't feed his family on his work now, and it's getting worse all the time. It ain't gonna do no good to set around and starve. I don't know what to do. If a fella owns a team of horses, he don't raise no hell if he got to feed 'em when they ain't workin'. But if a fella got men workin' for him, he don't give a damn. Horses is a hell of a lot more worth than men. I don't understand it. Gets so I don't want to think about it," said Jewel. "And I got to think about it. I got this here little girl. You know how purty she is. One week they give her a prize in this camp 'cause she's so purty. Well, what's gonna happen to her? She's gettin' spindly. I ain't gonna stand it. She's so purty. I'm gonna bust out." "How?" Willie asked. "What you gonna do, steal some stuff and get in jail? Kill somebody and get hung?" "I don't know," said Jewel. "Gets me nuts thinking about it. Gets me clear nuts. Gonna miss them dances," Tom said. "Them was some of the nicest dances I ever seen. Well, I'm gonna turn in. So long. I'll be seeing you someplace." He shook hands. "Sure will," said Jewel. "Well, so long." Tom moved away into the darkness. In the darkness of the Jode tent, Ruthie and Winfield lay on their mattress, and Ma lay beside them. Ruthie whispered, "Ma." "Yeah? Ain't you asleep yet?" "Ma, they gonna have croquet where we're going?" "I don't know. Get some sleep. We want to get an early start." "Well, I wished we'd stay here where we're sure we got croquet." Said Ma. "Ma, Winfie'll hit a kid tonight." "He shouldn't've." "I know. I told him, but he hit the kid right in the nose and Jesus, how the blood run down." "Don't talk like that. It ain't a nice way to talk." Winfield turned over. "That kid says we was Okies," he said in an outraged voice. "He says he wasn't no Okie 'cause he come from Oregon. Says we was goddamn Okies. I socked him. You shouldn't. He can't hurt you callin' names." "Well, I won't let him," Winfield said fiercely. Get some sleep." Ruthie said, "You oughta seen the blood run down, all over his clothes." Ma reached a hand from under the blanket and snapped Ruthie on the cheek with her finger. The little girl went rigid for a moment, and then dissolved into sniffling, quiet crying. In the sanitary unit, Pa and Uncle John sat in adjoining compartments. "Might swell get in a good last one," said Pa. "It's sure nice. 'Member how the little fellas was so scared when they flushed him the first time?" "I wasn't so easy myself," said Uncle John. He pulled his overalls neatly up around his knees. "I'm gettin' bad," he said. "I feel sin." "You can't sin none," said Pa. "You ain't got no money. Ju sit tight. 'Cause you at least $2 to sin, and we ain't got $2 amongst us." "Yeah. But I may thinkin' sin." "Alright. You can think sin for nothin'. It's ju as bad," said Uncle John. "It's a whole hell of a lot cheaper," said Pa. "Don't you go making light of sin." "I ain't." "You ju go ahead. You always get sinful ju when hell's a poppin'." "I know it," said Uncle John. "Always was that way. I never told half the stuff I done." "Well, keep it to yourself. These here nice toilets gets me sinful. Go out in the bushes then. Come on, pull up your pants and let's get some sleep." Pa pulled his overall straps in place and snapped the buckle. He flushed the toilet and watched thoughtfully while the water whirled in the bowl. It was still dark when Ma roused her camp. The low night lights shone through the open doors of the sanitary units. From the tents along the road came the assorted snores of the campers. Ma said, "Come on, roll out. We got to be on our way. Day's not far off." She raised the screechy shade of the lantern and lighted the wick. "Come on, all of you." The floor of the tent squirmed into slow action. Blankets and comforts were thrown back and sleepy eyes squinted blindly at the light. Ma slipped on her dress over the underclothes she wore to bed. "We got no coffee," she said. "I got a few biscuits. We can eat 'em on the road. Ju get up now, and we'll load the truck. Come on now. Don't make no noise. Don't want to wake the neighbors." It was a few moments before they were fully aroused. "Now don't you get away," Ma warned the children. The family dressed. The men pulled down the tarpaulin and loaded up the truck. "Make it nice and flat," Ma warned them. They piled the mattress on top of the load and bound the tarpaulin in place over its ridge pole. "Alright, Ma," said Tom. "She's ready." Ma held a plate of cold biscuits in her hand. "Alright. Here. Each take one. It's all we got." Ruthie and Winfield grabbed their biscuits and climbed up on the load. They coveted themselves with a blanket and went back to sleep, still holding the cold hard biscuits in their hands. Tom got into the driver's seat and stepped on the starter. It buzzed a little, and then stopped. "God damn you, Al!" Tom cried. "You let the battery run down." Al blustered, "How the hell was I gonna keep her up if I ain't got gas to run her?" Tom chuckled suddenly. "Well, I don't know how, But it's your fault. You got to crank her. I tell you it ain't my fault. Tom got out and found the crank under the seat. It's my fault, he said. Gimme that crank. Al seized it. Pull down the spark so she don't take my arm off. Okay, twist her tail. Al labored at the crank, around and around. The engine caught, spluttered, and roared as Tom choked the car delicately. He raised the spark and reduced the throttle. Ma climbed in beside him. We woke up everybody in the camp, she said. They'll go to sleep again. Al climbed in on the other side. Pa and Uncle John got up top, he said. Going to sleep again. Tom drove toward the main gate. The watchman came out of the office and played his flashlight on the truck. Wait a minute. What you want? You checkin' out? Sure. Well, I got to cross you off. Okay, know which way you're going? Well, we're gonna try up north. Well, good luck, said the watchman. Same to you. So long. The truck edged slowly over the big hump and into the road. Tom retraced the road he had driven before, past Wed Patch and west until he came to 99, then north on the great paved road, toward Bakersfield. It was growing light when he came into the outskirts of the city. Tom said, "Ever place you look is restaurants. And them places all got coffee. Look at that all-nighter there. Bet they got 10 gallons of coffee in there, all hot." "Aw, shut up," said Al. Tom grinned over at him. "Well, I see you got yourself a girl right off." "Well, what of it? He's mean this mornin', Ma. He ain't good company." Al said irritably, "I'm going out on my own pretty soon. Fella can make his way a lot easier if he ain't got a family." Tom said, "You'd have yourself a family in 9 months. I seen you playin' around." "Ya crazy," said Al. "I'd get myself a job in a garage and I'd eat in restaurants, and you'd have a wife and kid in 9 months. I tell ya I would." Tom said, "You're a wise guy, Al. You gonna take some beatin' over the head. Who's gonna do it?" "They'll always be guys to do it," said Tom. "You think Jew because now you Jew stop that," Ma broke in. "I done it," said Tom. "I was a badgerin' him. I didn't mean no harm, Al. I didn't know you liked that girl so much. I don't like no girls much." "Alright, then, you don't. You ain't gonna get no argument out of me." The truck came to the edge of the city. "Look at them hot dog stands, hundreds of 'em," said Tom. Ma said, "Tom, I got $1 put away. You want coffee bad enough to spend it?" "No, Ma. I'm Jew foolin'. You can have it if you want it bad enough." "I wouldn't take it," Al said, then shut up about coffee. Tom was silent for a time. "Seems like I got my foot in it all the time," he said. "There's the road we run up that night. I hope we don't never have nothing like that again," said Ma. "That was a bad night. I didn't like it none either." The sun rose on their right, and the great shadow of the truck ran beside them, flicking over the fence posts beside the road. They ran on past the rebuilt Hooverville. "Look," said Tom. "They got new people there. Looks like the same place." Al came slowly out of his sullenness. "Fella told me some of them people been burned out 15-20 times. Says they do go hide down the willows and then they come out and build them another weed shack. Jew like gophers. Got so used to it they don't even get mad no more, this fella says. They do figure it's like bad weather." "Sure was bad weather for me that night," said Tom. "They moved up the wide highway. And the sun's warmth made them shiver. Gettin' snappy in the mornin'," said Tom. "Winter's on the way. I do hope we can get some money 'fore it comes. Tent ain't gonna be nice in the winter." Ma sighed, and then she straightened her head. "Tom," she said, "we gotta have a house in the winter. I tell you we got to. Ruthie's alright, but Winfie ain't so strong. We got to have a house when the rains come. I heard it do rains cats around here. We'll get a house, Ma. You're easy. You gonna have a house? Jew so's it's got a roof and a floor. Jew to keep the little fellas off in the ground. We'll try, Ma. I don't wanna worry ya now. We'll try, Ma. "I do get panicky sometimes," she said. "I do lose my spunk. I never seen you when you lost it." "Nights I do, sometimes." There came a harsh hissing from the front of the truck. Tom grabbed the wheel tight and he thrust the brake down to the floor. The truck bumped to a stop. Tom sighed. "Well, there she is." He leaned back in the seat. Al leaped out and ran to the right front tire. "Great big nail," he called. "We got any tire patch?" "No," said Al. "Used it all up. Got patch, but no glue stuff." Tom turned and smiled sadly at Ma. "You should knit all about that dollar," he said. "We'd a fixed her some way." He got out of the car and went to the flat tire. Al pointed to a big nail protruding from the flat casing. "There she is. If they's one nail in the county, we run over it." "Is it bad?" Ma called. "No, not bad, but we got to fix her." The family piled down from the top of the truck. "Puncture?" Pa asked, and then he saw the tire and was silent. Tom moved Ma from the seat and got the can of tire patch from underneath the cushion. He unrolled the rubber patch and took out the tube of cement, squeezed it gently. "She's almost dry," he said. "Maybe they's enough." "Alright, Al. Block the back wheels. Liz get her jacked up." Tom and Al worked well together. They put stones behind the wheels, put the jack under the front axle, and lifted the weight off the limp casing. They ripped off the casing. They found the hole, dipped a rag in the gas tank and washed the tube around the hole. And then, while Al held the tube tight over his knee, Tom tore the cement tube in two and spread a little fluid thinly on the rubber with his pocket knife. He scraped the gum delicately. "Now let her dry while I cut a patch." He trimmed and beveled the edge of the blue patch. Al held the tube tight while Tom put the patch tenderly in place. "There. Now bring her to the running board while I tap her with a hammer." He pounded the patch carefully, then stretched the tube and watched the edges of the patch. "There she is. She's gonna hold. Stick her on the rim and we'll pump her up." "Looks like you keep your buck, Ma." Al said. "I wished we had a spare." "We got to get us a spare, Tom, on a rim and all pumped up. Then we can fix a puncture at night. When we get money for a spare we'll get us some coffee and side meat instead," Tom said. The light morning traffic buzzed by on the highway, and the sun grew warm and bright. A wind, gentle and sighing, blew in puffs from the southwest, and the mountains on both sides of the Great Valley were indistinct in a pearly mist. Tom was pumping at the tire when a roadster, coming from the north, stopped on the other side of the road. A brown-faced man dressed in a light gray business suit got out and walked across to the truck. He was bareheaded. He smiled, and his teeth were very white against his brown skin. He wore a massive gold wedding ring on the third finger of his left hand. A little gold football hung on a slender chain across his vest. "Morning," he said pleasantly. Tom stopped pumping and looked up. "Mornin'." The man ran his fingers through his coarse, short, graying hair. "You people looking for work?" "We sure are, mister. Lookin' even under boards." "Can you pick peaches?" "We never done it," Pa said. "We can do anything," Tom said hurriedly. "We can pick anything there is." The man fingered his gold football. "Well, there's plenty of work for you about 40 miles north." "We'd sure admire to get it," said Tom. "You tell us how to get there, and we'll go a lippin'." "Well, you go north to Pixley, that's 35 or 6 miles, and you turn east. Go about 6 miles. Ask anybody where the Hooper Ranch is. You'll find plenty of work there." "We sure will. Know where there's other people looking for work?" "Sure," said Tom. "Down at the Wed Patch Camp they's plenty lookin' for work. I'll take a run down there. We can use quite a few. Remember now, turn east at Pixley and keep straight east to the Hooper Ranch." "Sure," said Tom. "And we thank ya, mister. We need work awful bad." "All right. Get along as soon as you can." He walked back across the road, climbed into his open roadster, and drove away south. Tom threw his weight on the pump. 20 apiece, he called. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 20 Al took the pump, and then Pa and then Uncle John. The tire filled out and grew plump and smooth. 3 times around, the pump went. "Let her down and let's see," said Tom. Al released the jack and lowered the car. "Got plenty," he said. "Maybe a little too much." They threw the tools into the car. "Come on, let's go," Tom called. "We're gonna get some work at last." Ma got in the middle again. Al drove this time. "Now take her easy. Don't burn her up, Al." They drove on through the sunny morning fields. The mist lifted from the hilltops and they were clear and brown, with black-purple creases. The wild doves flew up from the fences as the truck passed. Al unconsciously increased his speed. "Easy," Tom warned him. "She'll blow up if you crowd her. We got to get there. Might even get in some work today." Ma said excitedly, "With foreman workin' maybe I can get some credit right off. First thing I'll get is coffee, 'cause you been wanting that, and then some flour and bacon powder and some meat. Better not get no side meat right off. Save that for later. Maybe Saturday. And soap. Got to get soap. Wonder where we'll stay." She babbled on. "And milk. I'll get some milk 'cause Rosa Sharn, she ought to have milk. The lady nurse says that." A snake wriggled across the warm highway. Al zipped over and ran it down and came back to his own lane. "Go for snake," said Tom. "You oughtn't to done that." "I hate 'em," said Al gaily. "Hate all kinds. Give me the stomach quake." The forenoon traffic on the highway increased, salesmen in shiny coupes with the insignia of their companies painted on the doors, red and white gasoline trucks dragging clinking chains behind them, great square-doored vans from wholesale grocery houses, delivering produce. The country was rich along the roadside. There were orchards, heavy-leafed in their prime, and vineyards with the long green crawlers carpeting the ground between the rows. There were melon patches and grain fields. White houses stood in the greenery, roses growing over them. And the sun was gold and warm. In the front seat of the truck, Ma and Tom and Al were overcome with happiness. "I ain't really felt so good for a long time," Ma said. "If we pick plenty peaches we might get a house, pay rent even, for a couple months. We got to have a house." Al said, "I'm gonna save up. I'll save up and then I'm going in a town and get me a job in a garage. Live in a room and eat in restaurants. Go to the movin' pictures every damn night. Don't cost much. Cowboy pictures." His hands tightened on the wheel. The radiator bubbled and hissed steam. "Did you fill her up?" Tom asked. "Yeah. Wind's kinda behind us. That's what makes her boil. It's a awful nice day," Tom said. "Used to work there in McAllister and think all the things I do. I'd go in a straight line way to hell and gone and never stop nowheres. Seems like a long time ago. Seems like it's years ago I was in. They was a guard made it tough. I was gonna lay for him. Guess that's what makes me mad at cops. Seems like every cop got his face. He used to get red in the face. Looked like a pig. Had a brother out west, they said. Used to get fellas paroled to his brother, and then they had to work for nothing. If they raised a stink, they'd get sent back for break-in parole. That's what the fellers said." "Don, think about it," Ma begged him. "I'm gonna lay in a lot of stuff to eat. Lot of flour and lard." "Might swell think about it," said Tom. "Try to shut it out, and it'll wang back at me." They was a screwball. Never tell you about him. Looked like happy hooligan. Harmless kind of fella. Always was gonna make a break. Fellas all called him hooligan. Tom laughed to himself. "Don, think about it," Ma begged. "Go on," said Al. "Tell about the fella." "It don't hurt nothin', Ma," Tom said. "This fella was always gonna break out. Make a plan, he would, but he couldn't keep it to hisself and pretty soon everybody knowed it, even the warden. He'd make his break and they'd take him by the hand and lead him back. Well, one time he drawed a plan where he's going over. Course he showed it around, and everybody kept still. And he hid out, and everybody kept still. So he's got himself a rope somewheres, and he goes over the wall. They's 6 guards outside with a great big sack, An hooligan comes quiet down the rope and they do haul the sack out and he goes right inside. They tie up the mouth and take him back inside. Fellas laughed so hard they like to died. But it busted hooligan's spirit. He Jew cried and cried, unmoped around and got sick. Hurt his feelings so bad. Cut his wrists with a pin and bled to death 'cause his feelings was hurt. No harm in 'im at all. They's all kinds of screwballs in stir. Don talk about it, Ma said. I knowed pretty boy Floyd's ma. He want a bad boy. Jew got drove in a corner. The sun moved up toward noon and the shadow of the truck grew lean and moved in under the wheels. Must be Pixley up the road, Al said. Seen a sign a little back. They drove into the little town and turned eastward on a narrower road. And the orchards lined the way and made an aisle. Hope we can find her easy, Tom said. Ma said, that fella said the Hooper Ranch. Said anybody'd tell us. Hope they's a store nearby. Might get some credit, with 4 men workin'. I could get a real nice supper if they'd gimme some credit. Make up a big stew maybe. Coffee, said Tom. Might even get me a sack of Durham. I ain't had no tobacco of my own for a long time. Far ahead the road was blocked with cars, and a line of white motorcycles was drawn up along the roadside. Must be a wreck, Tom said. As they drew near, a state policeman, in boots and Sam Brown belt, stepped around the last parked car. He held up his hand and Al pulled to a stop. The policeman leaned confidentially on the side of the car. Where you going? Al said, fella said they was work pickin' peaches up this way. Want to work, do you? Damn right, said Tom. Okay, wait here a minute. He moved to the side of the road and called ahead. One more. That's 6 cars ready. Better take this batch through. Tom called, hey. What's the matter? The patrolman lounged back. Got a little trouble up ahead. Don't you worry. You'll get through. Just follow the line. There came the splattering blast of motorcycles starting. The line of cars moved on, with the Jode truck last. 2 motorcycles led the way, and 2 followed. Tom said uneasily, I wonder what's the matter. Maybe the road's out, Al suggested. Don need 4 cops to lead us. I don't like it. The motorcycles ahead speeded up. The line of old cars speeded up. Al hurried to keep in back of the last car. These here is our own people, all of 'em, Tom said. I don't like this. Suddenly the leading policeman turned off the road into a wide graveled entrance. The old cars whipped after them. The motorcycles roared their motors. Tom saw a line of men standing in the ditch beside the road, saw their mouths open as though they were yelling, saw their shaking fists and their furious faces. A stout woman ran toward the cars, but a roaring motorcycle stood in her way. A high wire gate swung open. The 6 old cars moved through and the gate closed behind them. The 4 motorcycles turned and sped back in the direction from which they had come. And now that the motors were gone, the distant yelling of the men in the ditch could be heard. 2 men stood beside the graveled road. Each one carried a shotgun. One called, go on, go on. What the hell are you waiting for? The 6 cars moved ahead, turned a bend and came suddenly on the peach camp. There were 50 little square, flat-roofed boxes, each with a door and a window, and the whole group in a square. A water tank stood high on one edge of the camp, and a little grocery store stood on the other side. At the end of each row of square houses stood 2 men armed with shotguns and wearing big silver stars pinned to their shirts. The 6 cars stopped. 2 bookkeepers moved from car to car. Want to work? Tom answered, sure, but what is this? That's not your affair. Want to work? Sure we do. Name? Jode. How many men? 4. Women? 2. Kids? 2. Can all of you work? Why, I guess so. Okay, find house 63. Wages 5 cents a box. No bruised fruit. Alright, move along now. Go to work right away. The cars moved on. On the door of each square red house a number was painted. 60, Tom said. There's 60. Must be down that way. There, 61, 62, there she is. Al parked the truck close to the door of the little house. The family came down from the top of the truck and looked about in bewilderment. Two deputies approached. They looked closely into each face. Name? Jode, Tom said impatiently. Say, what is this here? One of the deputies took out a long list. Not here. Ever see these here? Look at the license. Nope. Ain't got it. Guess they're okay now. You look here. We don't want no trouble with you. Just do your work and mind your own business and you'll be all right. The two turned abruptly and walked away. At the end of the dusty street they sat down on two boxes and their position commanded the length of the street. Tom stared after them. They sure do want to make us feel at home. Ma opened the door of the house and stepped inside. The floor was splashed with grease. In the one room stood a rusty tin stove and nothing more. The tin stove rested on 4 bricks and its rusty stovepipe went up through the roof. The room smelled of sweat and grease. Rose of Sharon stood beside Ma. We gonna live here? Ma was silent for a moment. Why sure, she said at last. It ain't so bad once we wash it out. Get her mopped. I like the tent better, the girl said. This got a floor, Ma suggested. This here won't leak when it rains. She turned to the door. Might as well unload, she said. The men unloaded the truck silently. A fear had fallen on them. The great square of boxes was silent. A woman went by in the street, but she did not look at them. Her head was sunk and her dirty gingham dress was frayed at the bottom in little flags. The pall had fallen on Ruthie and Winfield. They did not dash away to inspect the place. They stayed close to the truck, close to the family. They looked forlornly up and down the dusty street. Winfield found a piece of baling wire and he bent it back and forth until it broke. He made a little crank of the shortest piece and turned it around and around in his hands. Tom and Pa were carrying the mattresses into the house when a clerk appeared. He wore khaki trousers and a blue shirt and a black necktie. He wore silver-bound eyeglasses, and his eyes, through the thick lenses, were weak and red, and the pupils were staring little bull's eyes. He leaned forward to look at Tom. I want to get you checked down, he said. How many of you going to work? Tom said, they's 4 men. Is this here hard work? Picking peaches, the clerk said. Piecework. Give 5 cents a box. Ain't no reason why the little fellas can't help. Sure not, if they're careful. Ma stood in the doorway. Soon's I get settled down I'll come out and help. We got nothing to eat, mister. Do we get paid right off? Well, no, not money right off. But you can get credit at the store for what you got coming. Come on, let's hurry, Tom said. I want to get some meat and bread in me tonight. Where do we go, mister? I'm going out there now. Come with me. Tom and Pa and Al and Uncle John walked with him down the dusty street and into the orchard, in among the peach trees. The narrow leaves were beginning to turn a pale yellow. The peaches were little globes of gold and red on the branches. Among the trees were piles of empty boxes. The pickers scurried about, filling their buckets from the branches, putting the peaches in the boxes, carrying the boxes to the checking station, and at the stations, where the piles of filled boxes waited for the trucks, clerks waited to check against the names of the pickers. Here's 4 more, the guide said to a clerk. Okay, ever picked before? Never did, said Tom. Well, pick careful. No bruised fruit, no windfalls. Bruise your fruit and we won't check 'em. There's some buckets. Tom picked up a 3-gallon bucket and looked at it. Full of holes on the bottom. Sure, said the nearsighted clerk. That keeps people from stealing them. All right, down in that section. Get going. The 4 Jodes took their buckets and went into the orchard. They don't waste no time, Tom said. Christ almighty, Al said. I ruther work in a garage. Pa had followed docilely into the field. He turned suddenly on Al. Now you do quit it, he said. You been a hankerin' and a complainin' and able blowin'. You get to work. You ain't so big I can't lick you yet. Al's face turned red with anger. He started to bluster. Tom moved near to him. "Come on, Al," he said quietly. "Bread and meat. We got to get 'em." They reached for the fruit and dropped them in the buckets. Tom ran at his work. 1 bucket full, 2 buckets. He dumped them in a box. 3 buckets. The box was full. "You made a nickel," he called. He picked up the box and walked hurriedly to the station. "Here's a nickel's worth," he said to the checker. The man looked into the box, turned over a peach or 2. "Put it over there." "That's out," he said. "I told you not to bruise them." "Dumped 'em out of the bucket, didn't you?" "Well, every damn peach is bruised. Can't check that one. Put 'em in easy or you're working for nothing." "Why, goddamn it, now go easy. I warned you before you started." Tom's eyes drooped sullenly. "Okay," he said. "Okay." He went quickly back to the others. "Might swell dump what you got," he said. "Yours is the same as mine. Won't take 'em." "Now, what the hell?" Al began. "Got to pick easier. Can't drop 'em in the bucket. Got to lay 'em in." They started again, and this time they handled the fruit gently. The boxes filled more slowly. "We could figure something out, I bet," Tom said. "If Ruthie and Winfield or Rosa Sharnju put 'em in the boxes, we could work out a system." He carried his newest box to the station. "Is this here worth a nickel?" The checker looked them over, dug down several layers. "That's better," he said. He checked the box in. "Just take it easy." Tom hurried back. "I got a nickel," he called. "I got a nickel. Only got to do that there 20 times for $1. They worked on steadily through the afternoon. Ruthie and Winfield found them after a while. "You got to work," Pa told them. "You got to put the peaches careful in the box. Here, now, one at a time." The children squatted down and picked the peaches out of the extra bucket, and a line of buckets stood ready for them. Tom carried the full boxes to the station. "That's 7, he said. "That's 8. 40 cents we got. Get a nice piece of meat for 40 cents. The afternoon passed. Ruthie tried to go away. "I'm tired," she whined. "I got to rest." "You got to stay right where you're at," said Pa. Uncle John picked slowly. He filled 1 bucket to 2 of Tom's. His pace didn't change. In mid-afternoon Ma came trudging out. "I woulda come before, but Rosa Sharn fainted," she said. "Just fainted away. You been eatin' peaches," she said to the children. "Well, they'll blast you out." Ma's stubby body moved quickly. She abandoned her bucket quickly and picked into her apron. When the sun went down they had picked 20 boxes. Tom set the 20th box down. $1, he said. "How long do we work?" "Work till dark, long as you can see." "Well, can we get credit now?" "Ma ought to go in and buy some stuff to eat." "Sure. I'll give you a slip for $1 now." He wrote on a strip of paper and handed it to Tom. He took it to Ma. "Here you are. You can get $1 worth of stuff at the store." Ma put down her bucket and straightened her shoulders. "Gets you, the first time, don't it?" "Sure. We'll all get used to it right off. Roll on in and get some food." Ma said, "What'll you like to eat?" "Meat," said Tom. "Meat and bread and a big pot of coffee with sugar in." "Great big pieces of meat." Ruthie wailed, "Ma, we're tired." "Better come along in, then." "They was tired when they started," Pa said. "Wild as rabbits they're a gettin'. Ain't gonna be no good at all less we can pin 'em down." "Soon's we get set down, they'll go to school," said Ma. She trudged away, and Ruthie and Winfield timidly followed her. "We got to work every day?" Winfield asked. Ma stopped and waited. She took his hand and walked along holding it. "It ain't hard work," she said. "Be good for you. And you're helping us. If we all work, pretty soon we'll live in a nice house. We all got to help." "But I got so tired." "I know. I got tired too. Everybody gets wore out. Got to think about other stuff. Think about when you'll go to school." "I don't want to go to no school." "Ruthie don't, neither. Them kids that goes to school, we seen 'em, Ma. Snots. Calls us okais. We seen 'em. I ain't a-goin'. Ma looked pityingly down on his straw hair. Don't give us no trouble right now, she begged. Soon's we get on our feet, you can be bad. But not now. We got too much, now. I ate 6 of them peaches, Ruthie said. Well, you'll have the skitters. And it ain't close to no toilet where we are. The company's store was a large shed of corrugated iron. It had no display window. Ma opened the screen door and went in. A tiny man stood behind the counter. He was completely bald, and his head was blue-white. Large, brown eyebrows covered his eyes in such a high arch that his face seemed surprised and a little frightened. His nose was long and thin, and curved like a bird's beak, and his nostrils were blocked with light brown hair. Over the sleeves of his blue shirt he wore black sateen sleeve protectors. He was leaning on his elbows on the counter when Ma entered. Afternoon, she said. He inspected her with interest. The arch over his eyes became higher. Howdy. I got a slip here for $1. You can get $1's worth, he said, and he giggled shrilly. Yes, sir. $1's worth. $1's worth. He moved his hand at the stock. Any of it. He pulled his sleeve protectors up neatly. Thought I'd get a piece of meat. Got all kinds, he said. Hamburg, like to have some Hamburg? 20 cents a pound, Hamburg. Ain't that awful high? Seems to me Hamburg was 15 last time I got some. Well, he giggled softly, yes, it's high, and same time it ain't high. Time you go on in town for a couple pounds of Hamburg, it'll cost you about a gallon of gas. So you see it ain't really high here, 'cause you got no gallon of gas. Ma said sternly, it didn't cost you no gallon of gas to get it out here. He laughed delightedly. You're looking at it backwards, he said. We ain't a buyin' it, we're a-sellin' it. If we was buyin' it, why, that'd be different. Ma put 2 fingers to her mouth and frowned with thought. It looks all full of fat and gristle. I ain't guaranteein' she won't cook down, the storekeeper said. I ain't guaranteein' I'd eat her myself, but they's lots of stuff I wouldn't do. Ma looked up at him fiercely for a moment. She controlled her voice. Ain't you got some cheaper kind of meat? Soup bones, he said. 10 cents a pound. But them's Jew bones. Them's just bones, he said. Make nice soup. Just bones. Got any boilin' beef? Oh, yeah. Sure. That's 2 bits a pound. Maybe I can't get no meat, Ma said. But they want meat. They said they wanted meat. Everybody wants meat, needs meat. That Hamburg is purty nice stuff. Use the grease that comes out of her for gravy. Purty nice. No waste. Don't throw no bone away. How much is side meat? Well, now you're getting into fancy stuff. Christmas stuff. Thanksgiving stuff. 35 cents a pound. I could sell you turkey cheaper, if I had some turkey. Ma sighed. Give me 2 pounds Hamburg. Yes, ma'am. He scooped the pale meat on a piece of waxed paper. On what else? Well, some bread. Right here. Fine big loaf, 15 cents. That there's a 12-cent loaf. Sure, it is. Go right in town and get her for 12 cents. Gallon of gas. What else can I sell you? Potatoes? Yes, potatoes. 5 pounds for a quarter. Ma moved menacingly toward him. I heard enough from you. I know what they cost in town. The little man clamped his mouth tight. Then go get 'em in town. Ma looked at her knuckles. What is this? She asked softly. You own this here store? No. I do work here. Any reason you got to make fun? That help you any? She regarded her shiny wrinkled hands. The little man was silent. Who owns this here store? Hooper Ranches, Incorporated, ma'am. And they set the prices? Yes, ma'am. She looked up, smiling a little. Everybody comes in talks like me, is mad? He hesitated for a moment. Yes, ma'am. And that's why you make fun? What d'you mean? Doing a dirty thing like this. Shames ya, don't it? Got to act flip, Huh? Her voice was gentle. The clerk watched her, fascinated. He didn't answer. That's how it is, Ma said finally. 40 cents for meat, 15 for bread, quarter for potatoes. That's 80 cents. Coffee? 20 cents the cheapest, ma'am. And that's the dollar. 7 of us workin', and that's supper. She studied her hand. Wrap him up, she said quickly. Yes, ma'am, he said. Thanks. He put the potatoes in a bag and folded the top carefully down. His eyes slipped to Ma, and then hid in his work again. She watched him, and she smiled a little. How'd you get a job like this? She asked. A fella got to eat, he began, and then, belligerently, a fella got a right to eat. What fella? Ma asked. He placed the 4 packages on the counter. Meat, he said. Potatoes, bread, coffee. $1, even. She handed him her slip of paper and watched while he entered the name and the amount in a ledger. There, he said. Now we're all even. Ma picked up her bags. Say, she said. We got no sugar for the coffee. My boy Tom, he wants sugar. Look. She said. They're a workin' out there. You let me have some sugar and I'll bring the slip in later. The little man looked away, took his eyes as far from Ma as he could. I can't do it, he said softly. That's the rule. I can't. I'd get in trouble. I'd get canned. But they're a workin' out in the field now. They got more'n a dime comin'. Gimme 10 cents of sugar. Tom, he wanted sugar in his coffee. Spoke about it. I can't do it, ma'am. That's the rule. No slip, no groceries. The manager, he talks about that all the time. No, I can't do it. No, I can't. They'd catch me. They always catch fellas. Always. I can't. For a dime? For anything, ma'am. He looked pleadingly at her. And then his face lost its fear. He took 10 cents from his pocket and rang it up in the cash register. There, he said with relief. He pulled a little bag from under the counter, whipped it open and scooped some sugar into it, weighed the bag, and added a little more sugar. There you are, he said. Now it's all right. You bring in your slip and I'll get my dime back. Ma studied him. Her hand went blindly out and put the little bag of sugar on the pile in her arm. Thanks to you, she said quietly. She started for the door, and when she reached it, she turned about. I'm learnin' one thing good, she said. Learnin' it all the time, every day. If you're in trouble or hurt or need, go to poor people. They're the only ones that'll help, the only ones. The screen door slammed behind her. The little man leaned his elbows on the counter and looked after her with his surprised eyes. A plump tortoise-shell cat leaped up on the counter and stalked lazily near to him. It rubbed sideways against his arms, and he reached out with his hand and pulled it against his cheek. The cat purred loudly, and the tip of its tail jerked back and forth. Tom and Alan P.A. and Uncle John walked in from the orchard when the dusk was deep. Their feet were a little heavy against the road. You wouldn't think Jew reachin' up and pick and get you in the back, Pa said. Be alright in a couple days, said Tom. Say, Pa, after we eat I'm gonna walk out and see what all that fuss is outside the gate. It's been workin' on me. Want to come? No, said Pa. I like to have a little while to do work and not think about nothin'. Seems like I been beatin' my brains to death for a hell of a long time. No, I'm gonna set a while, and then go to bed. How about you, Al? Al looked away. Guess I'll look around in here, first. He said. Well, I know Uncle John won't come. Guess I'll go her alone. Got me all curious. Pa said, I'll get a hell of a lot curiouser 'fore I'll do anything about it, with all them cops out there. Maybe they ain't there at night, Tom suggested. Well, I ain't gonna find out. You better not tell Ma where you're goin'. She'll just squirt her head off worryin'. Tom turned to Al. Ain't you curious? Guess I'll just look around this here camp, Al said. Lookin' for girls, huh? Mindin' my own business, Al said acidly. I'm still goin', said Tom. They emerged from the orchard into the dusty street between the red shacks. The low yellow light of kerosene lanterns shone from some of the doorways, and inside, in the half-gloom, the black shapes of people moved about. At the end of the street a guard still sat, his shotgun resting against his knee. Tom paused as he passed the guard. "Got a place where a fella can get a bath, mister?" The guard studied him in the half-light. At last he said, "See that water tank?" "Yeah." "Well, there's a hose over there. Any warm water?" "Say, who in hell you think you are, J. P. Morgan?" "No," said Tom. "No, I sure don't." "Good night, mister." The guard grunted contemptuously. "Hot water, for Christ's sake. Be wantin' tubs next." He stared glumly after the four Jodes. A second guard came around the end house. "Smatter, Mac?" "Why, them goddamn Okais. Is they warm water?" "He says." The second guard rested his gun butt on the ground. "It's them government camps," he said. "I bet that fella been in a government camp. We ain't gonna have no peace till we wipe them camps out. They'll be wantin' clean sheets, first thing we know." Mac asked, "How is it out at the main gate, hear anything?" "Well, they was out there yellin' all day. State police got it in hand. They're running the hell out of them smart guys. I heard they's a long lean son of a bitch spark plug in the thing. Fella says they'll get him tonight, and then she'll go to pieces. We won't have no job if it comes too easy," Mac said. "We'll have a job, all right. These goddamn Okais. You got to watch 'em all the time. Things get a little quiet, we can always stir 'em up a little. Have trouble when they cut the rate here, I guess." "We sure will. No, you needn't worry about us having work, not while Hooper's snubbin' close." The fire roared in the Jode house. Hamburger patties splashed and hissed in the grease, and the potatoes bubbled. The house was full of smoke, and the yellow lantern light threw heavy black shadows on the walls. Ma worked quickly about the fire while Rose of Sharon sat on a box resting her heavy abdomen on her knees. "Feelin' better now?" Ma asked. "Smell a cookin' gets me. I'm hungry, too." "Go set in the door," Ma said. "I got to have that box to break up anyways." The men trooped in. "Meat, by God," said Tom. "And coffee. I smell her. Jesus, I'm hungry. I ate a lot of peaches, but they didn't do no good." "Where can we wash, Ma?" "Go down to the water tank. Wash down there." "I just sent Ruthie and Winfield to Washington." The men went out again. "Go on now, Rosa Sharn," Ma ordered. "Either you set in the door or else on the bed. I got to break that box up." The girl helped herself up with her hands. She moved heavily to one of the mattresses and sat down on it. Ruthie and Winfield came in quietly, trying by silence and by keeping close to the wall to remain obscure. Ma looked over at them. "I got a feelin' you little fellas is lucky they ain't much light," she said. She pounced at Winfield and felt his hair. "Well, you got wet, anyway, but I bet you ain't clean." "They wasn't no soap," Winfield complained. "No, that's right. I couldn't buy no soap. Not today. Maybe we can get soap tomorrow." She went back to the stove, laid out the plates, and began to serve the supper. 2 patties apiece and a big potato. She placed 3 slices of bread on each plate. When the meat was all out of the frying pan, she poured a little of the grease on each plate. The men came in again, their faces dripping and their hair shining with water. "Leave me at her," Tom cried. They took the plates. They ate silently, wolfishly, and wiped up the grease with the bread. The children retired into the corner of the room, put their plates on the floor, and knelt in front of the food like little animals. Tom swallowed the last of his bread. "Got any more, Ma?" "No," she said. "That's all. You made $1, and that's $1's worth." "That? They charge extra out here. We got to go in town when we can." "I ain't full," said Tom. "Well, tomorrow you'll get in a full day. Tomorrow night, we'll have plenty." Al wiped his mouth on his sleeve. "Guess I'll take a look around," he said. "Wait, I'll go with you." Tom followed him outside. In the darkness, Tom went close to his brother. "Sure you don't want to come with me?" "No. I'm gonna look around like I said." "Okay," said Tom. He turned away and strolled down the street. The smoke from the houses hung low to the ground, and the lanterns threw their pictures of doorways and windows into the street. On the doorsteps people sat and looked out into the darkness. Tom could see their heads turn as their eyes followed him down the street. At the street end the dirt road continued across a stubble field, and the black lumps of haycocks were visible in the starlight. A thin blade of moon was low in the sky toward the west, and the long cloud of the Milky Way trailed clearly overhead. Tom's feet sounded softly on the dusty road, a dark patch against the yellow stubble. He put his hands in his pockets and trudged along toward the main gate. An embankment came close to the road. Tom could hear the whisper of water against the grasses in the irrigation ditch. He climbed up the bank and looked down on the dark water, and saw the stretched reflections of the stars. The state road was ahead. Car lights swooping past showed where it was. Tom set out again toward it. He could see the high wire gate in the starlight. A figure stirred beside the road. A voice said, "Hello, who is it?" Tom stopped and stood still. "Who are you?" A man stood up and walked near. Tom could see the gun in his hand. Then a flashlight played on his face. "Where you think you're going?" "Well, I thought I'd take a walk." "Any law against it?" "You better walk some other way." Tom asked, "Can't I even get out of here?" "Not tonight, you can't." "Want to walk back, or shall I whistle some help and take you?" "Hell," said Tom, "it ain't nothing to me. If it's gonna cause a mess, I don't give a darn." "Sure, I'll go back." The dark figure relaxed. The flash went off. "You see, it's for your own good. Them crazy pickets might get you." "What pickets?" "Them goddamn Reds." "Oh," said Tom. "I didn't know about them." "You seen 'em when you come, didn't you?" "Well, I seen a bunch of guys, but they was so many cops I didn't know. Thought it was an accident." "Well, you better get along back." "That's okay with me, mister." He swung about and started back. He walked quietly along the road 100 yards, and then he stopped and listened. The twittering call of a raccoon sounded near the irrigation ditch and, very far away, the angry howl of a tied dog. Tom sat down beside the road and listened. He heard the high soft laughter of a nighthawk and the stealthy movement of a creeping animal in the stubble. He inspected the skyline in both directions, dark frames both ways, nothing to show against. Now he stood up and walked slowly to the right of the road, off into the stubble field, and he walked bent down, nearly as low as the haycocks. He moved slowly and stopped occasionally to listen. At last he came to the wire fence, 5 strands of taut barbed wire. Beside the fence he lay on his back, moved his head under the lowest strand, held the wire up with his hands and slid himself under, pushing against the ground with his feet. He was about to get up when a group of men walked by on the edge of the highway. Tom waited until they were far ahead before he stood up and followed them. He watched the side of the road for tents. A few automobiles went by. A stream cut across the fields, and the highway crossed it on a small concrete bridge. Tom looked over the side of the bridge. In the bottom of the deep ravine he saw a tent and a lantern was burning inside. He watched it for a moment, saw the shadows of people against the canvas walls. Tom climbed a fence and moved down into the ravine through brush and dwarf willows, and in the bottom, beside a tiny stream, he found a trail. A man sat on a box in front of the tent. "Evenin'," Tom said. "Who are you?" "Well, I'm Jew goin' past." "Know anybody here?" "No. I tell you I was Jew goin' past." A head stuck out of the tent. A voice said, "What's the matter?" "Cassie!" Tom cried. "Cassie! For Christ's sake, what you doin' here?" "Why, my God, it's Tom Joad." "Come on in, Tommy. Come on in." "Know him, do ya?" the man in front asked. "Know him? Christ, yes. Knowed him for years. I come west with him." "Come on in, Tom." He clutched Tom's elbow and pulled him into the tent. 3 other men sat on the ground, and in the center of the tent a lantern burned. The men looked up suspiciously. A dark-faced, scowling man held out his hand. "Glad to meet ya," he said. "I heard what Cassie said. This the fella you was tellin' about?" "Sure. This is him." "Well, for God's sake. Where's your folks? What you doin' here?" "Well," said Tom, "we heard there was work this away. And we come, and a bunch of state cops run us into this here ranch and we been pickin' peaches all afternoon. I seen a bunch of fellas yellin'. They wouldn't tell me nothin', so I come out here to see what's going on." "How in hell'd you get here, Cassie?" The preacher leaned forward and the yellow lantern light fell on his high pale forehead. "Jailhouse is a kinda funny place," he said. "Here's me, been a-goin' into the wilderness like Jesus to try find out somethin'. Almost got her sometimes, too. But it's in the jailhouse I really got her." His eyes were sharp and merry. "Great big ol' cell, and she's full all the time. New guys come in, and guys go out. Course I talked to all of 'em." "Course you did," said Tom. "Always talk. If you was up on the gallows you'd be passin' the time of day with the hangman. Never seen such a talker." The men in the tent chuckled. A wizened little man with a wrinkled face slapped his knee. "Talks all the time," he said. "Folks kinda likes to hear him, though." "Used to be a preacher," said Tom. "Did he tell that?" "Sure, he told." Cassie grinned. "Well, sir," he went on, "I begin gettin' at things. Some of them fellas in the tank was drunks, but mostly they was there 'cause they stole stuff, and mostly it was stuff they needed and couldn't get no other way. You see?" he asked. "No," said Tom. "Well, they was nice fellas, you see. What made 'em bad was they needed stuff. And I begin to see, then. It's need that makes all the trouble. I ain't got it worked out. Well, one day they give us some bins that was sour. One fella started yellin', and nothin' happened. He yelled his head off. Trusty come along and looked in and went on. Then another fella yelled. Well, sir, then we all got yellin'. And we all got on the same tone, and I tell ya, it just seemed like that tank bulged and give and swelled up. By God. Then somethin' happened. They come runnin', and they give us some other stuff to eat, give it to us. You see?" "No," said Tom. Cassie put his chin down on his hands. "Maybe I can't tell you," he said. "Maybe you got to find out. Where's your cap?" "I come without it." "How's your sister?" "Hell, she's big as a cow. I bet she got twins. Gonna need wheels under her stomach. Got to holdin' it with her hands, now. You ain't told me what's going on." The wizened man said, "We struck. This here's a strike." "Well, 5 cents a box ain't much, but a fella can eat." "5 cents?" the wizened man cried. 5 cents? They payin' you 5 cents? Sure. We made $1.50. A heavy silence fell in the tent. Cassie stared out the entrance, into the dark night. "Looky, Tom," he said at last. "We come to work there. They says it's gonna be 5 cents. They was a hell of a lot of us. We got there and they says they're paying 2.5 cents. A fella can't even eat on that, and if he got kids, so we says we won't take it. So they drove us off. And all the cops in the world come down on us. Now they're paying you 5. When they bust this here strike, you think they'll pay 5? "I dunno," Tom said. "Payin' 5 now." "Looky," said Cassie. "We tried to camp together, and they drove us like pigs. Scattered us. Beat the hell out of fellas. Drove us like pigs. They run you in like pigs, too. We can't last much longer. Some people ain't et for 2 days. You goin' back tonight?" "Aim to," said Tom. "Well, tell the folks in there how it is, Tom. Tell 'em they're starvin' us and stabbin' theirself in the back. 'Cause sure as cow flops she'll drop to 2.5 Jew as soon as they clear us out." "I'll tell 'em," said Tom. "I don't know how. Never seen so many guys with guns. Don't know if they'll even let a fella talk. Unfolks on pass no time of day. They do hang down their heads and won't even give a fella a howdy. Try and tell 'em, Tom. They'll get 2.5, Jew the minute we're gone. You know what 2.5 is, that's 1 ton of peaches picked and carried for $1. He dropped his head. No, you can't do it. You can't get your food for that. Can't eat for that. I'll try to get to tell the folks. How's your ma? Pretty good. She liked that government camp. Baths and hot water. Yeah, I heard. It was pretty nice there. Cool and fine, no work, though. Had to leave. I'd like to go to one, said Cassie. Like to see it. Fella says they ain't no cops. Folks is their own cops. Cassie looked up excitedly. Was they any trouble? Fightin', stealin', drinkin'? No, said Tom. Well, if a fella went bad, what then? What'd they do? Put him out of the camp. But they wasn't many. Hell, no, said Tom. We was there a month, a nonny one. Cassie's eyes shone with excitement. He turned to the other men. You see? He cried. I tell you. Cops cause more trouble than they stop. Look, Tom. Try and get the folks in there to come on out. They can do it in a couple days. Them peaches is ripe. Tell 'em. They won't, said Tom. They're a gettin' 5, and they don't give a damn about nothin' else. But the minute they ain't strike breakin' they won't get no 5. I don't think they'll swallow that. 5 they're a gettin'. This's all they care about. Well, tell 'em anyways. Pa wouldn't do it, Tom said. I know him. He'd say it wasn't none of his business. Yes, Cassie said disconsolately. I guess that's right. Have to take a beatin' for he'll know. We was out of food, Tom said. Tonight we had meat. Not much, but we had it. Think Pa's gonna give up his meat on account of other fellas? Rosa Charnata get milk. Think Ma's gonna want to starve that baby Jew 'cause a bunch of fellas is yellin' outside a gate? Cassie said sadly, I wished they could see it. I wish they could see the only way they can depend on their meat. Oh, the hell. Get tard sometimes. God awful tard. I knowed a fella. Bring him in while I was in the jailhouse. Been trying to start a union. Got one started. And then them vigilantes busted up. And know what? Them very folks he been trying to help tossed him out. Wouldn't have nothing to do with him. Scared they'd get saw in his comp apostrophe N.Y. Say, get out. You're a danger on us. Well, sir, it hurt his feelin's pretty bad. But then he says, it ain't so bad if you know. He says, French Revolution, all them fellas that figured her out got their heads chopped off. Always that way, he says. Jew as natural as rain. You didn't do it for fun, no way. Doing it 'cause you have to. 'Cause it's you. Look at Washington, he says. Fit the revolution, and after, them sons of bitches turned on him. And Lincoln the same. Same folks yellin' to kill him. Natural as rain. Don't sound like no fun, said Tom. No, it don't. This fella in jail, he says, anyways, you do what you can. And, he says, the only thing you got to look at is that every time they's a little step forward, she may slip back a little, but she never slips clear back. You can prove that, he says, and that makes the whole thing right. And that means they wasn't no waste even if it seemed like they was. Talkin', said Tom. Always talkin'. Take my brother Al. He's out lookin' for a girl. He don't care about nothin' else. Couple days he'll get him a girl. Think about it all day and do it all night. He don't give a damn 'bout steps up or down or sideways. Sure, said Cassie. Sure. He's doin' what he's got to do. All of us like that. The man seated outside pulled the tent flap wide. God damn it, I don't like it, he said. Cassie looked out at him. What's the matter? I don't know. I Jew itch all over. Nervous as a cat. Well, what's the matter? I don't know. Seems like I hear somethin', and then I listen and they ain't nothin' to hear. You're Jew jumpy, the wizened man said. He got up and went outside. And in a second he looked into the tent. They's a great big ol' black cloud sailin' over. Bet she's got thunder. That's what's hittin' him, 'lectricity. He ducked out again. The other two men stood up from the ground and went outside. Cassie said softly, all of 'em's itchy. Them cops been sayin' how they're gonna beat the hell out of us and run us out of the county. They figure I'm a leader 'cause I talk so much. The wizened face looked in again. Cassie, turn out that lantern and come outside. They's somethin'. Cassie turned the screw. The flame drew down into the slots and popped and went out. Cassie groped outside and Tom followed him. What is it? Cassie asked softly. I dunno. Listen. There was a wall of frog sounds that merged with silence. A high, shrill whistle of crickets. But through this background came other sounds, faint footsteps from the road, a crunch of clods up on the bank, a little swish of brush down the stream. Can't really tell if you hear it. Fools you. Get nervous, Cassie reassured them. We're all nervous. Can't really tell. You hear it, Tom? I hear it, said Tom. Yeah, I hear it. I think they's guys comin' from every which way. We better get outta here. The wizened man whispered, under the bridge span, out that way. Hate to leave my tent. Let's go, said Cassie. They moved quietly along the edge of the stream. The black span was a cave before them. Cassie bent over and moved through. Tom behind. Their feet slipped into the water. 30 feet they moved, and their breathing echoed from the curved ceiling. Then they came out on the other side and straightened up. A sharp call, there they are. 2 flashlight beams fell on the men, caught them, blinded them. Stand where you are. The voices came out of the darkness. That's him. That shiny bastard. That's him. Cassie stared blindly at the light. He breathed heavily. Listen, he said. You fellas don't know what you're doing. You're helping to starve kids. Shut up, you red son of a bitch. A short heavy man stepped into the light. He carried a new white pick handle. Cassie went on, you don't know what you're doing. The heavy man swung with the pick handle. Cassie dodged down into the swing. The heavy club crashed into the side of his head with a dull crunch of bone, and Cassie fell sideways out of the light. Jesus, George. I think you killed him. Put the light on him, said George. Serve the son of a bitch right. The flashlight beam dropped, searched and found Cassie's crushed head. Tom looked down at the preacher. The light crossed the heavy man's legs and the white new pick handle. Tom leaped silently. He wrenched the club free. The first time he knew he had missed and struck a shoulder, but the second time his crushing blow found a head, and as the heavy man sank down, 3 more blows found his head. The lights danced about. There were shouts, the sound of running feet, crashing through brush. Tom stood over the prostrate man. And then a club reached his head, a glancing blow. He felt the stroke like an electric shock. And then he was running along the stream, bending low. He heard the splash of footsteps following him. Suddenly he turned and squirmed up into the brush, deep into a poison oak thicket. And he lay still. The footsteps came near, the light beams glanced along the stream bottom. Tom wriggled up through the thicket to the top. He emerged in an orchard. And still he could hear the calls, the pursuit in the stream bottom. He bent low and ran over the cultivated earth. The clods slipped and rolled under his feet. Ahead he saw the bushes that bounded the field, bushes along the edges of an irrigation ditch. He slipped through the fence, edged in among vines and blackberry bushes. And then he lay still, panting hoarsely. He felt his numb face and nose. The nose was crushed, and a trickle of blood dripped from his chin. He lay still on his stomach until his mind came back. And then he crawled slowly over the edge of the ditch. He bathed his face in the cool water, tore off the tail of his blue shirt and dipped it and held it against his torn cheek and nose. The water stung and burned. The black cloud had crossed the sky, a blob of dark against the stars. The night was quiet again. Tom stepped into the water and felt the bottom drop from under his feet. He threshed the 2 strokes across the ditch and pulled himself heavily up the other bank. His clothes clung to him. He moved and made a slopping noise, his shoes squished. Then he sat down, took off his shoes and emptied them. He wrung the bottoms of his trousers, took off his coat and squeezed the water from it. Along the highway he saw the dancing beams of the flashlights, searching the ditches. Tom put on his shoes and moved cautiously across the stubble field. The squishing noise no longer came from his shoes. He went by instinct toward the other side of the stubble field, and at last he came to the road. Very cautiously he approached the square of houses. Once a guard, thinking he heard a noise, called, "Who's there?" Tom dropped and froze to the ground, and the flashlight beam passed over him. He crept silently to the door of the Jode house. The door squalled on its hinges. And Ma's voice, calm and steady and wide awake, "What's that?" "Me, Tom." "Well, you better get some sleep. Al ain't in yet. He must have found a girl." "Go on to sleep," she said softly. Over under the window. He found his place and took off his clothes to the skin. He lay shivering under his blanket. And his torn face awakened from its numbness, and his whole head throbbed. It was an hour more before Al came in. He moved cautiously near and stepped on Tom's wet clothes. "Sh," said Tom. Al whispered, "You awake? How'd you get wet?" "Sh," said Tom. "Tell you in the mornin'." Pa turned on his back, and his snoring filled the room with gasps and snorts. "Your call," Al said. "Sh. Go to sleep." The little square of the window showed gray against the black of the room. Tom did not sleep. The nerves of his wounded face came back to life and throbbed, and his cheekbone ached, and his broken nose bulged and pulsed with pain that seemed to toss him about, to shake him. He watched the little square window, saw the stars slide down over it and drop from sight. At intervals he heard the footsteps of the watchman. At last the roosters crowed, far away, and gradually the window lightened. Tom touched his swollen face with his fingertips, and at his movement Al groaned and murmured in his sleep. The dawn came finally. In the houses, packed together, there was a sound of movement, a crash of breaking sticks, a little clatter of pans. In the graying gloom Ma sat up suddenly. Tom could see her face, swollen with sleep. She looked at the window, for a long moment. And then she threw the blanket off and found her dress. Still sitting down, she put it over her head and held her arms up and let the dress slide down to her waist. She stood up and pulled the dress down around her ankles. Then in bare feet, she stepped carefully to the window and looked out, and while she stared at the growing light, her quick fingers unbraided her hair and smoothed the strands and braided them up again. Then she clasped her hands in front of her and stood motionless for a moment. Her face was lighted sharply by the window. She turned, stepped carefully among the mattresses, and found the lantern. The shade screeched up, and she lighted the wick. Pa rolled over and blinked at her. She said, "Pa, you got more money." "Huh?" "Yeah. Paper wrote for 60 cents. Well, get up and go buy some flour and lard. Quick, now." Pa yawned. "Maybe the store ain't open." "Make 'em open it. Got to get somethin' in you fellas. You got to get out to work." Pa struggled into his overalls and put on his rusty coat. He went sluggishly out the door, yawning and stretching. The children awakened and watched from under their blanket, like mice. Pale light filled the room now, but colorless light, before the sun. Ma glanced at the mattresses. Uncle John was awake. Al slept heavily. Her eyes moved to Tom. For a moment she peered at him, and then she moved quickly to him. His face was puffed and blue, and the blood was dried black on his lips and chin. The edges of the torn cheek were gathered and tight. "Tom," she whispered, "what's the matter?" "Sh," he said. "Don't talk loud. I got in a fight." "Tom." "I couldn't help it, Ma." She knelt down beside him. "You in trouble?" He was a long time answering. "Yeah," he said. "In trouble. I can't go out to work. I got to hide." The children crawled near on their hands and knees, staring greedily. "What's the matter with him, Ma?" "Hush," Ma said. "Go wash up. We got no soap." "Well, use water." "What's the matter with Tom?" "Now you hush. And don't you tell nobody." They backed away and squatted down against the far wall, knowing they would not be inspected. Masked, is it bad? Nose busted. I mean the trouble? Yeah. Bad. Al opened his eyes and looked at Tom. Well, for Christ's sake. What was you in? What's a matter? Uncle John asked. Pa clumped in. They was open all right. He put a tiny bag of flour and his package of lard on the floor beside the stove. Sam matter? He asked. Tom braced himself on one elbow for a moment, and then he lay back. Jesus, I'm weak. I'm gonna tell you once. So I'll tell all of ya. How about the kids? Ma looked at them, huddled against the wall. Go wash your face. No, Tom said, they got to hear. They got to know. They might blab if they don't know. What the hell is this? Pa demanded. I'm gonna tell. Last night I went out to see what all the yellin' was about. And I come on Cassie. The preacher? Yeah, Pa. The preacher, Ani he was a lead in the strike. They come for him. Pa demanded, who come for him? I dunno. Same kinda guys that turned us back on the road that night. Had pick handles. He paused. They killed him. Busted his head. I was standin' there. I went nuts. Grabbed the pick handle. He looked bleakly back at the night, the darkness, the flashlights, as he spoke. I clubbed a guy. Ma's breath caught in her throat. Pa stiffened. Kill him? He asked softly. I don't know. I was nuts. Tried to. Masked. Was you saw? I dunno. I guess so. They had the lights on us. For a moment Ma stared into his eyes. Pa, she said, break up some boxes. We got to get breakfast. You got to go to work. Ruthie, when feel. If anybody asks you, Tom is sick, you hear? If you tell, he'll get sent to jail. You hear? Yes, ma'am. Keep your eye on him, John. Don't let him talk to nobody. She built the fire as Pa broke the boxes that had held the goods. She made her dough, put a pot of coffee to boil. The light wood caught and roared its flame in the chimney. Pa finished breaking the boxes. He came near to Tom. Cassie, he was a good man. What did he want to mess with that stuff for? Tom said dully, they come to work for 5 cents a box. That's what we're gettin'. Yeah. What we was doin' was break-in strike. They give them fellas 2.5 cents. You can't eat on that. I know, Tom said wearily. That's why they struck. Well, I think they bust the strike last night. We'll maybe be gettin' 2.5 cents today. Why, the sons of bitches, yeah. Pa. You see? Cassie was still a good man. Goddamn it, I can't get that picture out of my head. Him layin' there, head Jew crushed flat and oozin'. Jesus. He covered his eyes with his hand. Well, what we gonna do? Uncle John asked. Al was standing up now. Well, by God, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get out of it. No, you ain't, Al, Tom said. We need you now. I'm the one. I'm a danger now. Soon's I get on my feet I got to go. Ma worked at the stove. Her head was half turned to here. She put grease in the frying pan, and when it whispered with heat, she spooned the dough into it. Tom went on, you got to stay, Al. You got to take care of the truck. Well, I don't like it. Can't help it, Al. It's your folks. You can help 'em. I'm a danger to 'em. Al grumbled angrily. I don't know why I ain't let to get me a job in a garage. Later, maybe. Tom looked past him, and he saw Rose of Sharon lying on the mattress. Her eyes were huge, opened wide. Don't worry, he called to her. Don't you worry. Gonna get you some milk today. She blinked slowly, and didn't answer him. Pa said, we got to know, Tom. Think you killed this fella? I don't know. It was dark. And somebody smacked me. I don't know. I hope so. I hope I killed the bastard. Tom. Ma called. Don't talk like that. From the street came the sound of many cars moving slowly. Pa stepped to the window and looked out. There's a whole slew of new people comin' in, he said. I guess they bust the strike alright, said Tom. I guess you'll start at 2.5 cents. But a fella could work at a run, and still he couldn't eat. I know, said Tom. Eat windfall peaches. That'll keep you up. Ma turned the dough and stirred the coffee. Listen to me, she said. I'm getting cornmeal today. We're gonna eat cornmeal mush. Soon's we get enough for gas, we're moving away. This ain't a good place. And I ain't gonna have Tom out alone. No, sir. You can't do that, Ma. I tell you I'm a danger to ya. Her chin was set. That's what we'll do. Here, come eat this here, and then get out to work. I'll come out soon's I get washed up. We got to make some money. They ate the fried dough so hot that it sizzled in their mouths. And they tossed the coffee down and filled their cups and drank more coffee. Uncle John shook his head over his plate. Don't look like we're gonna get shut of this here. I bet it's my sin. Oh, shut up. Pa cried. We ain't got time for your sin now. Come on now. Liz, get out to her. Kids, you come hep. Ma's right. We got to go out of here. When they were gone, Ma took a plate and a cup to Tom. Better eat a little something. I can't, Ma. I'm so darn sore I couldn't chew. You better try. No, I can't, Ma. She sat down on the edge of his mattress. You got to tell me, she said. I got to figure how it was. I got to keep straight. What was Cazier doing? Why'd they kill him? He was just standing there with the lights on him. What did he say? Can you remember what he says? Tom said, sure. Cazier said, you got no right to starve people. And then this heavy fella called him a red son of a bitch. Cazier says, you don't know what you're doing. And then this guy smashed him. Ma looked down. She twisted her hands together. That's what he said, you don't know what you're doing? Yeah. Ma said, I wished Grandma coulda heard. Ma, I didn't know what I was doing, no more, and when you take a breath. I didn't even know I was gonna do it. It's alright. I wished you didn't do it. I wished you wasn't there. But you done what you had to do. I can't read no fault on you. She went to the stove and dipped a cloth in the heating dishwater. Here, she said. Put that there on your face. He laid the warm cloth over his nose and cheek, and winced at the heat. Ma, I'm gonna go away tonight. I can't go putting this on you folks. Ma said angrily, Tom. There's a whole lot I don't understand. But going away ain't gonna ease us. It's gonna bear us down. And she went on, they was the time when we was on the land. They was a boundary to us then. Ol' folks died off, and little fellas come, and we was always one thing, we was the family, kinda whole and clear. Now we ain't clear no more. I can't get straight. They ain't nothing keeps us clear. Al, he's a hankerin' and bitin' to go off on his own. And Uncle John is dran along. Pa's lost his place. He ain't the head no more. We're crackin' up, Tom. There ain't no family now. And Rosa Sharn, she looked around and found the girl's wide eyes. She gonna have her baby and they won't be no family. I don't know. I been trying to keep her goin'. Winfield, what's he gonna be, this away? Gettin' wild, and Ruthie too, like animals. Got nothing to trust. Don't go, Tom. Stay and help. Okay, he said tiredly. Okay, I should, though. I know it. Ma went to her dishpan and washed the tin plates and dried them. You didn't sleep? No. Well, you sleep. I seen your clothes was wet. I'll hang 'em by the stove to dry. She finished her work. I'm going now. I'll pick. Rosa Sharn, if anybody comes, Tom's sick, you hear? Don't let nobody in. You hear? Rose of Sharon nodded. We'll come back at noon. Get some sleep, Tom. Maybe we can get out of here tonight. She moved swiftly to him. Tom, you ain't gonna slip out? No, Ma. You sure? You won't go? No, Ma. I'll be here. Alright. 'Member, Rosa Sharn. She went out and closed the door firmly behind her. Tom lay still, And then a wave of sleep lifted him to the edge of unconsciousness and dropped him slowly back and lifted him again. You, Tom. Huh? Yeah. He started awake. He looked over at Rose of Sharon. Her eyes were blazing with resentment. What you want? You killed a fella. Yeah. Not so loud. You want to rouse somebody? What do I care? She cried. That lady told me. She says what sin's gonna do. She told me. What chance I got to have a nice baby? Connie's gone, and I ain't getting good food. I ain't getting milk. Her voice rose hysterically. Now you kill a fella. What chance that baby got to get poor right? I know, gonna be a freak, a freak. I never done no dancin'. Tom got up. He said. You're gonna get folks in here. I don't care. I'll have a freak. I didn't dance no hug dance. He went near to her. Be quiet. You get away from me. It ain't the first fella you killed, neither. Her face was growing red with hysteria. Her words blurred. I don't want to look at you. She covered her head with her blanket. Tom heard the choked, smothered cries. He bit his lower lip and studied the floor. And then he went to Pa's bed. Under the edge of the mattress the rifle lay, a lever-action Winchester .38, long and heavy. Tom picked it up and dropped the lever to see that a cartridge was in the chamber. He tested the hammer on half-cock. And then he went back to his mattress. He laid the rifle on the floor beside him, stock up and barrel pointing down. Rose of Sharon's voice thinned to a whimper. Tom lay down again and covered his bruised cheek with a blanket and made a little tunnel to breathe through. He sighed, Jesus, oh, Jesus. Outside a group of cars went by, and voices sounded. How many men? Jesus, 3. What you payin'? You go to house 25. Numbers right on the door. Okay, mister. What you payin'? 2.5 cents. Why, goddamn it, a man can't make his dinner. That's what we're payin'. There's 200 men coming from the south that'll be glad to get it. But, Jesus, mister. Go on now. Either take it or go on along. I got no time to argue. But, look. I didn't set the price. I'm just checking you in. If you want it, take it. If you don't, turn right around and go along. 25, you say? Yes, 25. Tom dozed on his mattress. A stealthy sound in the room awakened him. His hand crept to the rifle and tightened on the grip. He drew back the covers from his face. Rose of Sharon was standing beside his mattress. What you want? Tom demanded. You sleep, she said. You sleep off. I'll watch the door. They won't nobody get in. He studied her face for a moment. Okay, he said, and he covered his face with the blanket again. In the beginning dusk Ma came back to the house. She paused on the doorstep and knocked and said, "It's me," so that Tom would not be worried. She opened the door and entered, carrying a bag. Tom awakened and sat up on his mattress. His wound had dried and tightened so that the unbroken skin was shiny. His left eye was drawn nearly shut. Anybody come while we was gone? Ma asked. No, he said. Nobody. I see they dropped the price. How'd you know? I heard folks talkin' outside. Rose of Sharon looked dully up at Ma. Tom pointed at her with his thumb. She raised hell, Ma. Thinks all the trouble is aimed right smack at her. If I'm gonna get her upset like that I ought to go long. Ma turned on Rose of Sharon. What you doin'? The girl said resentfully, how'm I gonna have a nice baby with stuff like this? Ma said, hush. You hush now. I know how you're feelin', and I know you can't help it, but you keep your mouth shut. She turned back to Tom. Don't pay her no mind, Tom. It's awful hard, and I 'member how it is. Everything is shootin' right at you when you're gonna have a baby, and everything anybody says is a insult, and everything against you. Don't pay no mind. She can't help it. It's Ju the way she feels. I don't want to hurt her. Hush. Ju don't talk. She set her bag down on the cold stove. Didn't hardly make nothin', she said. I tell you, We're gonna get out of here. Tom, try and wrestle me some wood. No, you can't. Here, we got only this one box left. Break it up. I told all of the other fellas to pick up some sticks on the way back. Gonna have mush and a little sugar on. Tom got up and stamped the last box to small pieces. Ma carefully built her fire in one end of the stove, conserving the flame under one stove hole. She filled a kettle with water and put it over the flame. The kettle rattled over the direct fire, rattled and wheezed. How was it pickin' today? Tom asked. Ma dipped a cup into her bag of cornmeal. I don't want to talk about it. I was thinking today how they used to be jokes. I don't like it, Tom. We don't joke no more. When they's a joke, it's a mean bitter joke, and they ain't no fun in it. Fella says today, depression is over. I seen a jackrabbit, and there wasn't nobody after him. And another fella says, that ain't the reason. Can't afford to kill jackrabbits no more. Catch 'em and milk 'em and turn 'em loose. One you seen probably gone dry. That's how I mean. Ain't really funny, not funny like that time Uncle John converted an Injun and brang him home, and that Injun ate his way clean to the bottom of the bin, and then backslid with Uncle John's whiskey. Tom, put a rag with cool water on your face. The dusk deepened. Ma lighted the lantern and hung it on a nail. She fed the fire and poured cornmeal gradually into the hot water. Rosa Sharn, she said, can you stir the mush? Outside there was a patter of running feet. The door burst open and banged against the wall. Ruthie rushed in. Ma! She cried. Ma! Winfield got a fit. Where? Tell me. Ruthie panted, go white and fell down. At so many peaches he skittered hisself all day. Jew fell down. White. Take me. Ma demanded. Rosa Sharn, you watch that mush. She went out with Ruthie. She ran heavily up the street behind the little girl. 3 men walked toward her in the dusk, and the center man carried Winfield in his arms. Ma ran up to them. He's mine, she cried. Give him to me. I'll carry him for you, ma'am. No, here, give him to me. She hoisted the little boy and turned back, and then she remembered herself. I sure thank ya, she said to the men. Welcome, ma'am. The little fella's pretty weak. Looks like he got worms. Ma hurried back, and Winfield was limp and relaxed in her arms. Ma carried him into the house and knelt down and laid him on a mattress. Tell me. What's the matter? She demanded. He opened his eyes dizzily and shook his head and closed his eyes again. Ruthie said, I tell ya, Ma. He skittered all day. Every little while. Ate too many peaches. Ma felt his head. He ain't fevered. But he's white and drawed out. Tom came near and held the lantern down. I know, he said. He's hungered. Got no strength. Get him a can of milk and make him drink it. Make him take milk on his mush. Winfield, Ma said. Tell how you feel. Dizzy, said Winfield, Jew a whirlin' dizzy. You never seen such skitters, Ruthie said importantly. Pa and Uncle John and Al came into the house. Their arms were full of sticks and bits of brush. They dropped their loads by the stove. Now what? Pa demanded. It's Winfield. He needs some milk. Christ almighty. We all need stuff. Ma said, how much do we make today? $1.42. Well, you go right over and get a can of milk for Winfield. Now why'd he have to get sick? I don't know why, but he is. Now you get. Pa went grumbling out the door. You stir in that mush? Yeah. Rose of Sharon speeded up the stirring to prove it. Al complained, God almighty, Ma. Is mush all we get after work until dark? Al, you know we got to get. Take all we got for gas. You know. But, God almighty, Ma. A fella needs meat if he's gonna work. Jew you sit quiet, she said. We got to take the big jizz thing and whop it fast. You know what that thing is? Tom asked, is it about me? We'll talk when we vet, said Ma. Al, we got enough gas to go a ways, ain't we? 'Bout a quarter tank, said Al. I wish you'd tell me, Tom said. After. Jew, wait. Keep a stir in that mush, you. Here, let me put on some coffee. You can have sugar on your mush or in your coffee. They ain't enough for both. Pa came back with one tall can of milk. 11 cents, he said disgustedly. Here. Ma took the can and stabbed it open. She let the thick stream out into a cup, and handed it to Tom. Give that to Winfield. Tom knelt beside the mattress. Here, drink this. I can't. I'd sick it all up. Leave me be. Tom stood up. He can't take it now, Ma. Wait a little. Ma took the cup and set it on the window ledge. Don't none of you touch that, she warned. That's for Winfield. I ain't had no milk, Rose of Sharon said sullenly. I ought to have some. I know, but you're still on your feet. This here little fella's down. Is that mush good and thick? Yeah. Can't hardly stir it no more. Alright, let's eat. Now here's the sugar. They's about 1 spoon each. Have it on ya mush or in ya coffee. Tom said, I kinda like salt and pepper on mush. Salter if you like, Ma said. The pepper's out. The boxes were all gone. The family sat on the mattresses to eat their mush. They served themselves again and again, until the pot was nearly empty. Save some for Winfield, Ma said. Winfield sat up and drank his milk, and instantly he was ravenous. He put the mush pot between his legs and ate what was left and scraped at the crust on the sides. Ma poured the rest of the canned milk in a cup and sneaked it to Rose of Sharon to drink secretly in a corner. She poured the hot black coffee into the cups and passed them around. Now will you tell what's going on? Tom asked. I want to hear. Pa said uneasily, I wish Truthy and Winfield didn't have to hear. Can't they go outside? Ma said, no. They got to act growed up, even if they ain't. They's no help for it. Ruthie, you and Winfield ain't ever to say what you hear, else you'll Jew break us to pieces. We won't, Ruthie said. We're growed up. Well, Jew be quiet, then. The cups of coffee were on the floor. The short thick flame of the lantern, like a stubby butterfly's wing, cast a yellow gloom on the walls. Now tell, said Tom. Ma said, Pa, you tell. Uncle John slupped his coffee. Pa said, well, they dropped the price like you said. And they was a whole slew of new pickers so goddamn hungry they'd pick for a loaf of bread. Go for a peach, and somebody'd get it first. Gonna get the whole crop picked right off. Fellas run into a new tree. I seen fights, one fella claims it's his tree, 'nother fella wants to pick off'n it. Bring these here folks from as far as El Centro. Hungrier 'n hell. Work all day for a piece of bread. I says to the checker, we can't work for 2.5 cents a box, and he says, go on, then, quit. These fellas can. I says, soon's they get fed up they won't. And he says, hell, we'll have these here peaches in 'fore they get fed up. Pa stopped. She was a devil, said Uncle John. They say they's 200 more men comin' in tonight. Tom said, yeah. But how about the other? Pa was silent for a while. Tom, he said, looks like you done it. I kinda thought so. Couldn't see. Felt like it. Seems like the people ain't talkin' 'bout much else, said Uncle John. They got posses out, and they's fellas talkin' up a lynching, course when they catch the fella. Tom looked over at the wide-eyed children. They seldom blinked their eyes. It was as though they were afraid something might happen in the split second of darkness. Tom said, well, this fella that done it, he only done it after they killed Cassie. Pa interrupted, that ain't the way they're tellin' it now. They're sayin' he done it fust. Tom's breath sighed out, They're workin' up a feelin' against us folks. That's what I heard. All them drum corps fellas and lodges and all that. Say they're gonna get this here fella. They know what he looks like? Tom asked. Well, not exactly, but the way I heard it, they think he got hit. They think he'll have. Tom put his hand up slowly and touched his bruised cheek. Ma cried, it ain't so, what they say. Easy, Ma, Tom said. They got it cold. Anything them drum corps fellas say is right if it's against us. Ma peered through the ill light, and she watched Tom's face, and particularly his lips. "You promised," she said. "Ma, maybe this fella oughta go away. If this fella done something wrong, maybe he'd think, okay, let's get the hangin' over. I done wrong and I got to take it. But this fella didn't do nothing wrong. He don't feel no worse'n if he killed a skunk." Ruthie broke in, "Ma, me and Winfrey eel knows. He don't have to go this fella and for us." Tom chuckled. "Well, this fella don't want no hangin', 'cause he'd do it again. Same time, he don't aim to bring trouble down on his folks. Ma, I got to go." Ma covered her mouth with her fingers and coughed to clear her throat. "You can't," she said. "They wouldn't be no way to hide out. You couldn't trust nobody. But you can trust us. We can hide you, and we can see you get to eat while your face gets well. But, Ma," she got to her feet. "You ain't goin'. We're talking you. Al, you back the truck against the door. Now, I got it figured out. We'll put one mattress on the bottom, and then Tom gets quick there, and we take another mattress and sort of fold it so it makes a cave, and he's in the cave, and then we sort of wall it in. He can breathe out the end, you see. Don't argue. That's what we'll do." Pa complained, "Seems like the man ain't got no say no more. She's due a heller. Come time we get settled down, I'm gonna smack her." "Come that time, you can," said Ma. "Roust up, Al. It's dark enough." Al went outside to the truck. He studied the matter and backed up near the steps. Ma said, "Quick now. Get that mattress in." Pa and Uncle John flung it over the end gate. "Now that one." They tossed the second mattress up. "Now, Tom, you jump up there and get under. Hurry up." Tom climbed quickly, and dropped. He straightened one mattress and pulled the second on top of him. Pa bended upwards, stood it sides up, so that the arch covered Tom. He could see out between the sideboards of the truck. Pa and Al and Uncle John loaded quickly, piled the blankets on top of Tom's cave, stood the buckets against the sides, spread the last mattress behind. Pots and pans, extra clothes, went in loose, for their boxes had been burned. They were nearly finished loading when a guard moved near, carrying his shotgun across his crooked arm. "What's going on here?" he asked. "We're going out," said Pa. "What for?" "Well, we got a job offered, good job." "Yeah? Where's it at?" "Why, down by Wed Patch. Let's have a look at you." He turned a flashlight in Pa's face, in Uncle John's, and in Al's. "Wasn't there another fella with you?" Al said, "You mean that hitchhiker? Little short fella with a pale face?" "Yeah. I guess that's what he looked like. You picked him up on the way in. He went away this morning when the raid dropped." "What did he look like again?" "Short fella. Pale face. Was he bruised up this morning?" "I didn't see nothing," said Al. "Is the gas pump open?" "Yeah, till 8. "Get in," Al cried. "If we're gonna get to Wed Patch 4 morning we gotta ram on." "Get in front, Ma?" "No, I'll set in back," she said. "Pa, you set back here too. Let Rosa Sharn set in front with Al and Uncle John." "Give me the work slip, Pa," said Al. "I'll get gas and change if I can." The guard watched them pull along the street and turn left to the gasoline pumps. "Put in 2, said Al. "You ain't going far." "No, not far. Can I get change on this here work slip?" "Well, I ain't supposed to." "Look, mister," Al said. "We got a good job offered if we get there tonight. If we don't, we miss out. Be a good fella." "Well, okay, you sign her over to me." Al got out and walked around the nose of the Hudson. "Sure I will," he said. He unscrewed the water cap and filled the radiator. 2, you say?" "Yeah, 2. Which way you goin'?" "South. We got a job." "Yeah? Jobs is scarce, reg'lar jobs." "We got a friend," Al said. "Jobs all waitin' for us." "Well, so long." The truck swung around and bumped over the dirt street into the road. The feeble headlight jiggled over the way, and the right headlight blinked on and off from a bad connection. At every jolt, the loose pots and pans in the truck bed jangled and crashed. Rose of Sharon moaned softly. "Feel bad?" Uncle John asked. "Yeah. Feel bad all the time. Wished I could set still in a nice place. Wished we was home and never come. Connie wouldn't went away if we was home. He woulda studied up and got someplace." Neither Al nor Uncle John answered her. They were embarrassed about Connie. At the white painted gate to the ranch, a guard came to the side of the truck. "Going out for good?" "Yeah," said Al. "Going north. Got a job." The guard turned his flashlight on the truck, turned it up into the tent. Ma and Pa looked stonily down into the glare. "Okay." The guard swung the gate open. The truck turned left and moved toward 101, the Great North-South Highway. "Know where we're going?" Uncle John asked. "No," said Al. "You goin', and gettin' goddamn sick of it." "I ain't so terrible far from my time," Rose of Sharon said threateningly. "They better be a nice place for me." The night air was cold with the first sting of frost. Beside the road the leaves were beginning to drop from the fruit trees. On the load, Ma sat with her back against the truck side, and Pa sat opposite, facing her. Ma called, "You all right, Tom?" His muffled voice came back, "Kinda tight in here. We all through the ranch?" "You be careful," said Ma. "Might get stopped." Tom lifted up one side of his gave. In the dimness of the truck the pots jangled. "I can pull her down quick," he said. "Sides, I don't like gettin' trapped in here." He rested up on his elbow. "By God, she's gettin' cold, ain't she?" "They's clouds up," said Pa. "Fella says it's gonna be an early winter. Squirrels a buildin' high, or grass seeds?" Tom asked. "By God, you can tell weather from anything. I bet you could find a fella could tell weather from a old pair of underdrawers." "I dunno," Pa said. "Seems like it's gettin' on winter to me. Fella'd have to live here a long time to know." "Which way we a goin'?" Tom asked. "I dunno. Al," he turned off Lev. "Seems like he's going back the way we come." Tom said, "I can't figure what's best. Seems like if we get on the main highway there'll be more cops. With my face this away, they'd pick me right up. Maybe we oughta keep to back roads." Ma said, hammer on the back. "Get Al to stop." Tom pounded the front board with his fist. The truck pulled to a stop on the side of the road. Al got out and walked to the back. Ruthie and Winfield peeked out from under their blanket. "What you want?" Al demanded. Ma said, "We got to figure what to do. Maybe we better keep on the back roads." "Tom says so." "It's my face," Tom added. "Anybody'd know. Any cop know me." "Well, which way you want to go?" "I figured north." "We been south." "Yeah," said Tom, "but keep on back roads." Al asked, "How about pullin' off and catchin' some sleep, goin' on tomorrow?" Ma said quickly. "Not yet. Let's get some distance first." "Okay." Al got back in his seat and drove on. Ruthie and Winfield covered up their heads again. Ma called, "Is Winfield all right?" "Sure, he's all right," Ruthie said. "He been sleepin'?" Ma leaned back against the truck side. "Gives ya a funny feelin' to be hunted like." "I'm gettin' mean." "Everybody's gettin' mean," said Pa. "Everybody. You seen that fight today? Fella changes. Down that government camp we wasn't mean." Al turned right on a graveled road, and the yellow lights shuddered over the ground. The fruit trees were gone now, and cotton plants took their place. They drove on for 20 miles through the cotton, turning, angling on the country roads. The road paralleled a bushy creek and turned over a concrete bridge and followed the stream on the other side. And then, on the edge of the creek the lights showed a long line of red boxcars, wheelless, and a big sign on the edge of the road said, "Cotton Pickers Wanted." Al slowed down. Tom peered between the sidebars of the truck. A quarter of a mile past the boxcars Tom hammered on the car again. Al stopped beside the road and got out again. "Now what ya want?" "Shut off the engine and climb up here," Tom said. Al got into the seat, drove off into the ditch, Cut lights and engine. He climbed over the tailgate. "Alright," he said. Tom crawled over the pots and knelt in front of Ma. "Look," he said. "It says they want cotton pickers. I seen that sign. Now I've been trying to figure how I'm gonna stay with you, and not make no trouble. When my face gets well, maybe it'll be alright, but not now. You see them cars back there? Well, the pickers live in them. Now maybe they's work there. How about if you get work there and live in one of them cars? How about you?" Ma demanded. "Well, you seen that crick, all full of brush. Well, I could hide in that brush and keep out of sight. And at night you could bring me out somepin' to eat. I seen a culvert, little ways back. I could maybe sleep in there." Pa said, "By God, I'd like to get my hands on some cotton. There's work I understand. Them cars might be a purty place to stay," said Ma. "Nice and dry. You think they's enough brush to hide in, Tom?" "Sure. I been watchin'. I could fix up a little place, hide away. Soon's my face gets well, I'd come out." "You gonna scar purty bad," said Ma. "Hell. Everybody's got scars. I picked 400 pounds once," Pa said. "Course it was a good heavy crop. If we all pick, we could get some money." "Could get some meat," said Al. "What'll we do right now?" "Go back there, and sleep in the truck till mornin'," Pa said. "Get work in the mornin'. I can see them bulls even in the dark." "How about Ma asked. "Now you'd you forget me, Ma. I'll take me a blanket. You look out on the way back. They's a nice culvert. You can bring me some bread or potatoes, or mush, and just leave it there. I'll come get it." "Well, seems like good sense to me," said Pa. "It is good sense," Tom insisted. "Soon's my face gets a little better, why I'll come out and go to pickin'." "Well, alright," Ma agreed. "But Don you take no chance at. Don let nobody see you for a while." Tom crawled to the back of the truck. "I'll you take this here blanket. You look for that culvert on the way back, Ma. Take care," she begged. "You take care." "Sure," said Tom. "Sure I will." He climbed the tailboard, stepped down the bank. "Good night," he said. Ma watched his figure blur with the night and disappear into the bushes beside the stream. "Dear Jesus, I hope it's alright," she said. Al asked, "You want I should go back now?" "Yeah," said Pa. "Go slow," said Ma. "I want to be sure and see that culvert he said about. I got to see that." Al backed and filled on the narrow road, until he had reversed his direction. He drove slowly back to the line of boxcars. The truck lights showed the catwalks up to the wide car doors. The doors were dark. No one moved in the night. Al shut off his lights. "You and Uncle John climb up back," he said to Rose of Sharon. "I'll sleep in the seat here." Uncle John helped the heavy girl to climb up over the tailboard. Ma piled the pots in a small space. The family lay wedged close together in the back of the truck. A baby cried, in long jerking cackles, in one of the boxcars. A dog trotted out, sniffing and snorting, and moved slowly around the Jode truck. The tinkle of moving water came from the stream bed.